HBO Max, this will go down in history as a first ballot Hall of Fame, head up your ass brand strategy move. There's something in brand strategy. We spend 2 sessions in my brand strategy course at NYU called brand architecture. Mm-hmm. And in an era of M&A and consolidation, when all of a sudden Norwest owns Wells Fargo, and Wells Fargo is the better brand than a Minneapolis commercial bank that specializes in mortgages, what do? You say Wells Fargo and Norwest Company, and then ultimately you drop Norwest and it becomes Wells Fargo. When Dayton Hudson starts this cool retailer called Target, Dayton Hudson Target, Target a Dayton Hudson Company, and then just Target, and then the whole thing becomes Target as Dayton Hudson fades to black. These Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, right? Dean Witter was on top. They were the bigger company, but what do you know? Morgan Stanley's a better brand, and now it's just Morgan Stanley. Whenever you have really brain-dead brand moves that just make absolutely no sense, right? There's Datsun, which was a nice brand in the 70s. When I was at, I think it was Emelita Elementary School, our principal was just the coolest cat. He had great blow-dried hair. He used to wear those cool tweed jackets with elbow pads. But he used to roll up, true story, he would roll up to the faculty parking lot about second period, clearly hungover. And after, having a lovely over for a little Lancer's wine and listen to the Fifth Dimension, he would show up about 11 in the morning, and he'd had this silver Datsun 240Z, which was sort of the closest that the Japanese got to a Porsche. It was such an incredible sports coupe. It was just a really unique design, great performance. And it would be like a Who concert. We'd be playing tetherball or handball, but essentially it would be like a Who concert when Principal Eukelson would roll up in his 240Z, and we would rush the fence and trample each other like a football game or a Who concert out of control to see the 240Z. Mm-hmm. And then what does Datsun do? The stiffs at corporate have this ego thing where they want a global brand, and it was called Nissan in other markets. So they trashed the brand. And in the weirdest brand architecture transition move, it had the Datsun logo on the front and then the Nissan logo on the back. So it was like, mm-hmm. Oh, it's a Datsun there. It goes, no, it's a Nissan. Mm-hmm. And this takes the cake. HBO, a brand is a series of intangible associations that result in a rational trial or margin. And those associations, our emotions, are built slowly over time. You can't really buy or build a brand. It's like 9 women can't have a baby in a month. The same is true of a brand. You can't build a brand like it. You could have infinite capital and you couldn't build a brand like HBO in 2, 3, 5, maybe even 10 years. And HBO means a level of quality program that is so tapped into the cultural zeitgeist and has such incredible execution as a function of HBO's culture, which was able to basically be a flyweight that could kick the shit out of Larry Holmes. They were spending $2 or $3 billion a year on content. Netflix was spending $17 billion, and yet what are we all talking about? We're all talking about Succession. What did we used to talk about? Game of Thrones. They consistently figure out a way to put out the most culturally relevant content. And for me, I have real bias here. Some of my most, moving moments in media, and media is really moving. Mm-hmm. I remember when the mom breaking down in tears in 6 Feet Under.
But it's the trying that makes you feel loved. How are you going to feel loved if you don't ever let me try?
Or the boys going on the bus that ran into their father and ultimately killed him.
This is the bus.
What bus?
The bus.
The mafia soldier peering through or looking through photo albums of vacations at the Jersey Shore before he hangs himself. That's The Sopranos. I remember the Prince of Dorne, Pedro Pascal, saying to Tyrion Lannister that, I will be your champion.
I will be your champion.
These moments are so powerful. And those moments, when they happened in media, usually happened on HBO. And it built this brand that meant just excellence through the ability to capture emotion in scripted drama. And they're taking that brand and immolating it so they can call it Max. I mean, this is an outrage, Ed. This is an outrage. And by the way, we're changing the name of the Prof G show to HBO, and we're just going to see what happens. But
well,
let me
just push back on this.
Yeah.
So
try,
I
bitch, try.
I actually like this rebrand. I said I liked it on Twitter. I said I just think it sounds cleaner. And I got a lot of pushback, a lot of unfollows, interestingly. But the way I see it is, you just made the analogy of the Datsun logo on the front, Nissan logo on the back. Isn't that sort of what's going on here with HBO Max combining the two? I mean, maybe in the best situation maybe for you would be you just call the streamer HBO. But there are all of these other production companies. They have to now transition getting the Discovery Plus content onto the Max platform. Don't you think that Max is just kind of cleaner? Plus, the HBO production studio is still going to exist. You're still going to see HBO original The Last of Us, HBO original Game of Thrones. You're still going to have that brand existing. But this, to me, just feels cleaner. Plus, they've got that bullseye through the A in the Max, which is sort of a hat tip to the HBO brand. Well, here's how I'll end. I kind of like it. What do you think of that?
Well, first off, let's nod to your logic and let's change the name of your educational institution to Prince because it's cleaner, Ed. It's cleaner. So you're the university formerly known as Prince. Like the notion that we're gonna change something to Max and take decades of branding in intangible associations. What you had with HBO is anything on HBO I would trial. I had so much confidence and trust in that brand, and brand is sort of synonymous with differentiation and trust, that any show that came out on HBO, I would trial. And the thing about HBO that made it so successful wasn't the shows that were on it. It was the shows that weren't on it. Mm-hmm. And that is the bar is just a little bit higher, whereas Netflix is like, we're going to greenlight pretty much everything. Amazon is essentially we're the Walmart. Hey, you want to sell through us? Anything. It actually has more content than any streaming network. HBO was the luxury brand. It was the Hermes bags. It was the LVMH, the Hermes bag, the Birkin bag, the Chanel of media, and it was also had incredible self-expressive benefit. I remember parties in the 70s in Southern California where my dad was trying to fuck everyone that wasn't his wife. He would literally go up to them, and then part of his rap was, "Oh, in our household we only watch HBO." Like that was some big flex.
Wow.
Or maybe it was the early 80s. I don't know. Anyways. Trying to think, was it between his third and his fourth divorce? Anyways, but he saw that as a sign of prestige, of self-expressive benefit. And I mean, this thing called on so many brand attributes, even internally. Yeah, I think that they were going to have a much easier time attracting talent, the best writers, the best actors to an HBO production as opposed to a Max production. And I think that similar to every bad decision made in brand strategy, it all circles back or can be reverse engineered back to a 50 or 60-year-old something individual who realizes they're going to die and their ego starts to take over all their decisions. And I'm sure because he didn't come from HBO and he didn't invent it, he was at Discovery. Yep. He's pissed off the whole thing isn't called Discovery. He wants to have his name on something original, the guy who built Max. And he's destroyed shareholder value. If you're LVMH and you have Dior, you don't call it Louis Vuitton and have a Dior logo in the middle of it. I mean, these things are almost impossible to build. This kind of a brand of this equity is literally capturing lightning in a bottle over and over for decades, and to just trash it and say, "Oh, we're Max." I mean, this will go down as one of the dumbest moves in the history of brand strategy. They could consolidate the back end. They could bring all the headquarters together. They could have one CFO. But to not make this the brand that's on top or have it remain a sub-brand is literally to say, okay, we're going to take Celine, which is owned by, I think Celine is owned by LVMH? And call it the LVMH bag. It just, you just don't do that. The equity here, this reflects poor decision making. We meant you should hold on to HBO, not Max. Said every consultant and marketing executive to and with Time Warner with an IQ over 80. This is literally first ballot Hall of Fame of stupid fucking decisions. Anyways, before you say anything really dumb, I'm going to keep going here. Adidas, yeah, I feel for them. They made, or as I like to call them, Adidas. Because, I live in Europe now, Ed. I live in Europe.
That's right.
Because America is still the best place to make money. I said this at the Wall Street Journal CEO conference yesterday where they were horrified because I kept dropping F-bombs on stage. But, and by the way, you know who spoke 3 hours before me? I'll give you a hint. He's a mendacious fuck that has an automobile company and says that George Soros hates humanity. Anyways, me and Elon Musk on the same stage.
That's awesome.
And they told me that my session had a bigger turnout. Hello, but the
Really?
technology didn't work. Get that little inside dig at the DeSantis announcement. I like Adidas. I think they showed real mettle by saying, sorry, Kanye, that shit just don't, that kind of anti-Semitic weirdness, just that dog don't hunt here, regardless of the economic harm. And I think their stock, that was a buying opportunity when it went down, and I think it's ripped back. 1.3 billion. My question would be, and it's easy to be a purist and heckle from the cheap seats. My question would be, is any of that money going to go to him? And if it does, it's sort of uncomfortable. But selling a bunch of Yeezys, they will actually probably clear out pretty fast because they'll probably become collector's items. My son's first artisanal collection item is their kicks, right? They actually see value in limited, like they don't collect baseball cards. They don't, for a hot moment, they're like, should we buy Dogecoin? Because they thought they would get rich quick. But the StockX, and it's amazing what the shoe manufacturers have done. I think especially Nike, creating scarcity value and kind of collector's value, if you will. I bet these become collector's items.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to... Go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to push back. I mean, we talked about this issue on No Mercy, No Malice. And one of the things that we pointed out is that at certain points, corporations need to draw a line just to sort of remind ourselves that a line even exists in the first place. And we commended Adidas for taking action about this. Doesn't this kind of nullify everything that they did? I mean, it's the epitome of all talk, no action. Shouldn't we be making, I don't know, maybe a bigger deal out of this?
1.3 billion, right?
Yep.
It's just a lot of money. Like, it's easy to be a purist. They're not producing anymore. They severed the relationship. I mean, I empathize with the board members here. Like $1.3 billion, if we just burn it and when we say to the world, aren't we pure?
Yeah.
Okay. That puts us in a hole. That makes it harder for us to compete with Nike, makes it harder for us to be economically viable and continue to be a good company that makes the right decision in the long term. So I sort of give them a hall pass here. It's a lot of money. They're trying to say we're going to, donate some of this money to causes that are directly trying to combat the venom and weirdness that came out of, Kanye's mouth.
Yep.
But $1.3 billion that's a serious hit to the company and employees and the stakeholders. And like I said, it's just so easy to be a purist outside the company walls.
Yeah.
So I give them a little bit of a hall pass here. But I think that they should do what you suggest, and they should just change the brand name to DOS, like DOS boot. That's cleaner, isn't it? DOS.
It's clean.
Jesus, I can't believe you think this HBO. I seriously can't get over that. That makes me question every decision we've made about you, Ed. UK inflation coming down to 8.7%. I'm really happy about that. I like the new PM. He strikes me as really reasonable. When you have the United Kingdom, they get the big stuff right. They're not talking about whether or not to ban assault weapons because they banned them 26 years ago. They're not talking about bathrooms because they're just saying, well, of course trans people should have rights. We don't need to have a conversation around it. And there's absolutely no discussion about whether or not we should force women to carry their baby to term. That's just, well, don't be ridiculous. Yeah. They get the big stuff right, but they have managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory with Brexit. I mean, that was just, it's just hard to imagine, things are going well for us. We have a great culture. We're seen as a jumping off point for Europe. We have amazing educational institutions, an amazing culture. the wealthiest people in the world want to all either have a home here or in New York. We're just set up for success. How could we really fuck ourselves in one fell swoop? And they managed to do it with Brexit. It's the only country, I believe, in Europe that hasn't grown in the last 5 years. So the worst of both worlds, low growth and high inflation, means that every year the quality of life of Brits goes down. I mean, it's pretty striking. I take the train, the Paddington Express, which is lovely, back from Heathrow. And you don't have to get very far. I mean, London has so much wealth. It is staggering how much wealth there is here. Not because Brits are that productive or Londoners are so productive, but basically Tony Blair put in place a series of private property laws where if you made billions as a war criminal or as an oligarch, or because your great uncle is some minister at Saudi Aramco, bring your money here and we'll protect it and you'll have a really nice life. So they're kind of or London is really sort of the ultimate butler. And I think we had a really interesting journalist from The Guardian, I forget his name, talking about how it's become the world's butler. But they're set up for success. But you get just 10 miles outside of London, you realize that there's real struggles here. And there's people who are, don't have a lot of prosperity. And those people get hit hard. When their food prices are up 17%, but wages are up 4%, that means they can't take a summer vacation. So I'm glad to see inflation coming down. The debt crisis, I'm calling it. I think we do what we always do. I think we go right up to the edge here. I think Speaker McCarthy is, I hate to use the R word, but I do think he's reasonable. I think in a back room, they've winked and nodded at each other and said, okay, he said, Mr. President, I got to pretend I'm fucking crazy to keep the crazies in line. And pretend that I'm hearing them and acting crazy, and we'll get right up to the eve of this thing. But this is just mutually assured destruction. Everyone would come out of this looking terrible. All of a sudden, the military would stop getting paid, our vendors would stop getting paid, Social Security recipients would stop. That's the people we got to be worried about is the seniors. You want to see an insurrection? I mean, when they start storming the movie set where Murder, She Wrote is filmed and they find out it's no longer in production, watch out. They're coming for you. I thought that was funny. I was expecting a laugh from you, Ed. You don't even know what Murder, She Wrote is, do you? I bet they're not going to watch that at the 24-month reunion at Prince. Anyways.
Well, just one last thing on the credit rating. Don't you think that the mistake has already been made by even letting it get this close? I mean, last time this happened was in 2008. We did not reach a debt crisis, but we did cut it really close. And we got a downgrade in our credit ratings from a lot of these ratings agencies. The fact that they're even talking about it feels like maybe we could get a downgrade anyway. Don't you feel like we've already fucked up in a way?
Yeah, but if you look at interest rates, I think interest rates have actually come down. I think they've ticked down the last few weeks. And the only reason I say that is because I have to refinance all these mortgages. I got a mortgage. Let's turn this back to me. I had a mortgage on my Soho place. It was 2.375. That's what I was able to borrow money at. And I'm literally hating myself that I only got a 5-year, not a 30-year, because I grew up, it's been so long. The trajectory of interest rates has just been straight down since the 80s. So you just were kind of had this illusion of security or delusion of security. I should have listened to Bill Cohen or Barry Ritholtz, and interest rates had to go up. But now I'm talking about refining at 5.5.5, and that's only because all these bankers want to do business with me. So, my 320 bips on, call it, whatever, big ass mortgage. I mean, that's real money. But anyways, my point is, they've said that actually interest rates have actually come down. I don't think the markets fully believe we're that stupid. I don't think that, where do we see panic in the markets right now? I don't see it.